Hello and welcome back to the Emotions at Work video series. I'm Stephanie Mitrano-Meda from Innovation Copilots. In this third video, I'm sharing a way to guide you in choosing an approach to emotional management, depending on what emotion you're feeling, but also depending on who you are. In our emotional journey, we're not all at the same point. We all have our own ways of thinking and past experiences. I mean, this is great for diversity, but it's more challenging if you want to share the one size fits all magic tool for emotional management. Let's be straight with you, it does not exist. This is why I'm sharing different approaches so you can test and find which will work for you. We need to go back to the mechanics of emotions from video 1 to find where you can actually influence the emotional process. We have seen that life confronts your values. That's how the whole process starts. But here, as long as you're alive, you will be stimulated by things, events, people. And this is not where you can influence the process. So let's move on to the next part. Next, you internalize the stimulus or the life event, and this is definitely where you can have an impact because this is where the emotions is being triggered, and this is your own thinking process. So there is power here. And also, the next part is when the chemistry of the emotion has changed your state, it then drives your behavior. And here lies some potential for empowerment and influencing the process. And instead of being driven by the emotion, your behavior can be just informed by your emotion, and you can have a more conscious and less automatic response to the life event. How you internalize then your own behavior is part of your own learning process, and it can be a source of motivation or discouragement in your emotional development. But again, it's your own thinking process, so you have an impact on that. On the last part of this mechanics, it's when your behavior impacts your relationships. You can change your behavior, of course, but you cannot influence how others will internalize it. That's their own journey. So to summarize, there are 3 points of potential input for you to move from automatic response to a more conscious response. And these are changing your behavior to a behavior that's more conscious, so changing your response, changing your chemistry, changing the emotion itself, or the physical aspect of your emotion anyway. And the last part is working on the root of the emotion, so changing your mind. I will share 3 types of approaches, and some of them will focus purely on one point of input, like doing some body work, for example, to change your internal chemistry. So you can have a more favorable state to behave. Other approaches are touching on more than one input, like working on your mind and your behavior, or maybe working on your state and your behavior. So let's explore which approach might be more suitable for you. First, there is the changing your state approach. Basically, what you want to do here is change the chemistry of the emotion. Remember when we were talking about the emotion, it might be about having more adrenaline, so having your heartbeat that's accelerating. It's about really the physicality of the emotion. And breath work usually is a very good way to start because breathing, and especially deep, slow breathing with your belly, all the breathing techniques that are used in yoga, in singing, in sports, in Pilates, in martial arts, all of these techniques and meditation are very good because they help slow down your heartbeat, which is one of the key things that happens when you are feeling an emotion. It might have an impact on your heartbeat. The second thing it does is that it focuses your mind on one thought, which is breathe. So instead of being panicky and having thoughts all over the place, then it helps you focus. And the last thing, it might stop you from speaking too fast because you have to think about breathing, so you cannot get words out. So slowing down this process might help you change your state just enough so that you can then have a decision on how to behave. The second types of techniques start in changing your state or power postures. These are very good for fear by anticipation. So, for example, if you know you're going to face a difficult meeting, you're going to an interview, you're going to a negotiation, you want to do the power postures prior to that event in order to be in the best state possible to go to that difficult situation. There is a very good TED talk from Amy Cuddy on power postures. And the last type of techniques I'm using for changing your state are anchors. They are based on NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. I will go into more details in a specific video about this, but basically it's about in the heat of the moment, feeling the emotion and being able to very quickly, the snap of your finger, to change your state so that you can react in a more, let's say, rational way. The second type of approach is about changing your perspective. And changing your perspective can have an impact not only on how you think, but also how you behave. The first type of technique I use is about embodying a person of value. Again, I will do a short video about this one more in detail, but it does have an impact on changing how you see something, how you perceive it, but also how you can behave in that situation. All of this being inspired by a person or a character that you find carries or embodies values that are important to you. So it's not about changing yourself completely to a different person, but still being inspired by someone. The second technique is about changing scale. So it's about re-evaluating a situation in the light of, with a different distance, let's say, because when we are emotional, we are in the emotion, we are in the situation. And taking some steps back or a distance really helps sometimes see it differently. And if we see it differently, we might have a different evaluation. So you can take different types of scales, like in the scale of a day, how important is this? In this scale, another scale of time is in a lifetime, how important is this event? But also it can be a geographic event, geographic scale. So in the scale of the planet, how important is this? Or the scale of the universe, if you want to go very far. So again, it's about re-evaluating things. And the last changing perspective tool that I use is the 3 chairs. It's a coaching tool. Really helps you develop empathy as well. So taking the perspective of another person. And it helps in situations that are emotional for you, especially in conflict. If you're involved with another person, it's really a good exercise. But I will go into detail with that. But again, if that's where most of your emotions are coming from, a difficult relationship, then the 3 chairs might be a useful way to go about it. And the last type of approach is about changing your mind. Now, changing your mind is about owning your own thinking process, but also rewiring it, rethinking in a different way, so you can reclaim some power and not be victim to all the old mental constructions that have been built since you were born. So the first one is about recognizing your own patterns, so you can anticipate and you can build strategies, behavior strategies for better coping or faster recovery in emotional situations. The second type of tools about changing your mind is some kind of owning your feeling responsible, owning your mind patterns and feeling responsible for your actions, which means you can act and learn from it, but also it's about letting go of old patterns or letting go of a certain part of the situation. It has to do a lot with our belief system. It works very well with anger, because with anger it often demands action, but in some situation you might not feel like you can actually act. So it is about finding the right balance between what you can do and what you cannot do. So it's a very interesting tool that I will do a video on. So if you have some issues with anger and letting go of certain things, that might be a good way to start. And the last tool about changing your mind is about the worst case scenario. So this one obviously deals with fear, and especially fear by projection, like future scenarios that you're building in your mind, taking you in very, very bad places and triggering a lot of anxiety and fear. And this tool is very interesting as it addresses fear and finds constructive and rational solutions in the present, even if the fear is about future events. So I hope that you have found within these three approaches something that seems to be suited for you, something that would be a good way to start in your emotional development journey. And further videos will come to address some key tools that I've mentioned here, and so that it will continue to give you some help to implement new things in your emotional life. Thanks for watching and speak to you soon. Bye bye.